Hi, my name is Suzanne Dome. I'm the author of Empty Space and soon Second Signal. That second one should be out sometime in June. I had this thought the other day. I was watching some anime with Jason, and I thought, what are some authors' guilty pleasures? And I guess one of my big guilty pleasures is anime. I love watching anime. Of course, right now, during my crafting, I'm watching some X-Files again because I loved it the first time through, so I'm rewatching it and completely forgot about some early episodes that were really good. Um, but I like anime. It started in college. It wasn't allowed in my household. Mom didn't like it too much. So we didn't get to watch it when it was on Toonami. But when I got into college, I met some friends who were really big into anime, and so they introduced me to Cowboy Bebop and Vampire Hunter D. And I really fell in love with the way that the Japanese run a storyline. I was taught in the writing lab at Emporia State that different cultures have a different way of thinking, whereas Americans are kind of straight to the point, and Asians kind of poetically circle in on the subject until they reach it. And I've noticed that when I watch a 26 episode series about how um, they have several episodes that are directly something to do with the story, and then they'll have a few silly episodes. So when I was writing, I couldn't help but kind of incorporate that a little bit into my own books. Um, have a few things that have directly something to do with the main storyline, and then having a few silly episodes in between, to show the characters sentience so that they don't look so flat. You've got to have those human interest sections. Um, but yeah, anime is a guilty pleasure for me. Another one is I love watching. Um, Obviously, I've said this before. Alien stuff. I like watching UFO conspiracies. When UFO Hunters is on, I'm right there. I love Bill Burns. Um, and I love it when people take the scientific approach, when they look for the implants and when they look for the chunks of metal that have fallen off, or when they go and check radiation levels in an area where someone said that they saw something. I love that. I also love hearing people's stories about what happened and trying to imagine how I would feel if that happened to me. Um, there's some really disturbing stories out there from some people, some really disturbing firsthand. And, there aren't very many people who go out and collect that information, so a lot of it goes unreported. But I've actually used that as part of my research for my books because I wanted um, to kind of make a tribute to those people that have had to go through that in hopes that maybe what's out there really isn't as scary as what it's been made out to be. That maybe that's just one aspect. So when I was writing the books, I made sure to put in there that yes, there are these experiments and that there are these harvestings, and it talks a little bit about it in the prologues of books 1, 2, and 3. But what's beyond that is so much more than just what's seen on the surface, and a little bit about Earth being quarantined. So that's kind of a tribute to those people that have had those experiences. Um, so really, I just love the subject, and I love it when I can find anime that's in space. A lot of anime in space is kind of dry and a little bit dour, but there's a few that are funny, like Vandred. That one's hilarious. Um, in that one, the aliens are bad. And that one, actually, the aliens to each other are men and women, so it's even more amusing. And there's a few others that are pretty funny. And as far as taking themes from anime, I think the one thing I took away from that was that it made me research Eastern philosophy a little bit because I kept noticing, oh, well, there's that interesting idea. I wonder if that's something real from their culture, if that's something they made up from the story. So early on, it did make me do a little bit more cultural research. And uh, so my guilty pleasure actually turned into a great motivator um, in terms of expanding my worldview a little bit and making me more aware of different ideas and different cultures and different concepts. And so I think I took away some good things from that personally, as well as, in terms of my books. Um, Back to the UFO thing, I also think that I took away some great things from that too, in terms of I don't think that um, I I kind of think that I would not be a little more prepared, but I wonder if my sense of wonderment at seeing something wouldn't overwhelm the fear. Um, I was joking with somebody one day that it's not fair. I went to New Mexico and I was there for over a week, and I never saw a UFO the whole time I was down there, and I wanted to see one so bad. And they told me, well, I saw something while I was down there. I just saw some lights. It was kind of creepy and weird. And I'm like, that's not fair. I wanted to see something so bad. Of course, I want to see something, so I'm never going to get to. Which is where X Files comes in, because I have to joke about Mulder and his "I want to believe" thing, because it seems like the people who really want to see something, the MUFON investigators, the people like me who just really, really want that experience, don't get to have it, and it's always that person that's not expecting it that gets to have that experience. So, it's kind of like, hey, aliens, hello, I'm waiting for you. But maybe they feel like they've already done their job as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. Depends on what you believe the agenda is. Um, Another guilty pleasure for me is apocalypse stuff. I like to watch not drama TV. I do not a Walking Dead fan. I don't sit there and watch True Blood or any of that vampire stuff. I don't have anything against vampire fiction. I've actually read some really good vampire fiction, but it seems like it's been popularized to the point where it's cheesy. And so I kind of ignore that popular drama television, and I go more for the documentary type stuff. So I like watching documentaries on people's investigations into the meanings of the apocalypse, people's investigations into Nostradamus and his predictions. Otherwise, I have weird dreams about it, so I have an ulterior motive. But if I've kind of had it on the forefront of my mind since I was a kid, and I've always thought about it, and I've always had this sense that that we were on the edge of something. I can't tell you what it is because I don't know. I just have that feeling. Um, Someone tried to explain it away to me that, oh, it's because of the time you were born in, and because of the things that have changed, and that might have something to do with it. It might have just been that I'm an '80s child and things aren't the way they used to be. And but then you've got your people who've been sitting here analyzing these ancient predictions, these 500-year-old ideas, or even older than that when you get into some of the literature that's been around for thousands of years, um, in terms of what it could mean. Uh, of course, the problem with interpretation is that it's totally in the eye of the beholder. So I find apocalypse studies fascinating simply because it really reaches into the human psyche and tells us about ourselves, about what we believe in, about what we value, and about what we're most scared of, what our deepest fears are. And like that Miriam Williamson poem, it always seems to be that our deepest fears is the highest point we can get to, is that we're scared of how far we can go. And so we keep putting these mental limits on ourselves. And I think that's a very revealing thing when it comes to apocalypse studies. And that's something that I've noticed anyway. I guess another guilty pleasure I have is Discovery ID. I love forensics shows. I don't like the bloody stuff. I don't watch CSI. I don't watch Criminal Minds anymore, although I did for a while because Matthew Gubler was cute back then. And I don't watch those drama ones, but I do like the real life stories. I like watching the investigative process, and I like watching the cops find the bad guy, even after 30 years or however long it takes for them to figure out what happened in a situation. And I like watching some of the new sciences that have come about because of the investigative process. It's very fascinating to me, some of the things that they can do now to identify someone. Even a smudgy fingerprint, they can actually find certain loops and hooks now in the fingerprint to identify a person. So there's a lot of science in that fascinates me, as well as the human interest side of it. So I do watch the First 48 and a lot of Discovery ID programs like 2020 on ID, and I think those better produced programs are the ones I like the most, especially when they go back and revisit a case that they've already looked at years before to give new information. Recently, I watched the special they did on Amanda Knox, and it was fascinating what they discovered about the flaws in the Italian government's investigation. And to me, that's really fascinating, too, when you discover these political flaws. And I've actually included something kind of similar to that, those type of investigative flaws in Second Signal, because I think it's really important to be able to identify with what's going on. I have a lot of, okay, so another weird guilty pleasure of mine is any show having to do with quantum physics and the way the brain works. I've actually watched a lot of those, so Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman. And I'm going to end it with that. Maybe I'll get to talking about that some other time. Again, this is Suzanne Dome, author of Empty Space, talking about my guilty pleasures and the things that I like to watch and how they've benefited me. You can find me on Facebook, Google+, PaganSpace.net, The Steampunk Empire, Twitter, and my private website, EmptySpace.us. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.